Title suggestion: Why your never give up mentality is wrong. According to the I Ching, the most successful military strategy in history says to never fight to win. In fact, the most powerful move you can make in a moment of crisis is not to charge, not to pivot, and certainly not to grind through it. It is to run away. 3,000 years ago, before the first foundations of Rome were even a thought, the sages of the Zhou dynasty realized a truth that modern hustle culture has spent billions of dollars trying to suppress: that your obsession with holding the line is exactly what your enemies are counting on to destroy you. We have been conditioned to believe that retreat is cowardice. We have been told that if we just work harder, if we just stay in the failing relationship or the dying business one more month, we will turn the corner. But the I Ching, the oldest book in human history, argues that the most superior person is the one who knows how to vanish. Today, we are decoding hexagram 33, ton, the wisdom of the retreat. And by the end of this, you will understand why your current struggle isn't a lack of effort. It's a lack of distance. Imagine the year 1000 BC. The Shang dynasty, once a glorious and terrifying empire of bronze and blood, is rotting from within. King Zhou of Shang is a tyrant of legendary cruelty, a man who built forests of meat and lakes of wine while his people starved. To oppose him directly was suicide. To stay in his court was corruption. This was the world of King One, the father of the I Ching. He didn't survive by being the loudest rebel in the room. He survived by spending years in a prison cell, quietly observing the patterns of the universe, watching how the moon retreats from the sun, how the winter retreats from the spring. He realized that life is not a straight line of progress. It is a series of breaths. Inhale, and you expand. Exhale, and you must contract. The ancients called this the Great Withdrawal. They didn't see it as a loss. They saw it as the necessary gathering of strength. Think of the great corporate collapses of the last 20 years. Think of Nokia, once the undisputed king of the mobile world. They didn't fail because they weren't working hard. They failed because they refused to retreat from a dying hardware model while the world moved to software. They held their ground until the ground itself turned to quicksand. Have you ever considered that your greatest strength might actually be the very thing that's pinning you to a losing position? We begin our walk through the source text with the first and most dangerous stage of any cycle of change. The I Ching says, retreating at the tail. This is perilous. One must not wish to undertake anything. Read that again. Retreating at the tail. In plain language, this means you've waited too long. You are the last person to leave the burning building. You are the investor selling at the very bottom of the market after watching the price drop for 6 months. You are the employee who waits to be fired rather than resigning when the culture turned toxic. When you are at the tail of a retreat, you have lost the initiative. You are no longer making a choice. You are being hunted by circumstances. Look at the story of Quibi, the short-form video platform that raised $1.75 billion and vanished in 6 months. They were at the tail. The market had already shifted to user-generated content like TikTok and YouTube. By the time they launched, they were retreating before they even began, but they refused to see the tail. They threw more money at the problem, trying to undertake a massive expansion when the universe was telling them to withdraw. The actionable principle is this: if you find yourself at the end of a cycle, do not attempt to start a new project to save the old one. Stop. Do nothing. Any movement made from the tail of a retreat only increases the peril. As we move deeper into the strategy, the text becomes even more specific about the mechanics of the escape. The I Ching warns, a retreat that is blocked. This is distressing and perilous. One must support his followers. This is the nightmare scenario. This is the moment you realize you want to leave, but you have built so many dependencies that you are trapped. Maybe it's a high-salary job that you hate, but you've scaled your lifestyle so high that you can't afford the pay cut of a career change. Maybe it's a business partnership where your personal assets are tied to a failing partner. You are blocked. Consider the concept of golden handcuffs in the tech industry. Highly talented engineers and executives stay in roles that soul-crush them because their unvested stock options act as a block to their retreat. They are distressed because their internal compass says, go, but their external reality says, stay. The I Ching suggests that in this state, your only duty is to support those who follow you. In a modern context, this means if you are trapped in a failing system, your focus should shift from personal gain to the preservation of your team or your family's stability. Ask yourself, if you had to leave everything behind today, what would actually stop you? Is it a physical need or a psychological cage? The actionable principle: identify your blocks before the crisis hits and begin systematically dismantling them while the sun is still shining. Now we reach the turning point. The I Ching offers a glimmer of the superior man's approach: cheerful retreat. Perseverance brings good fortune. This is the most difficult stage to master. A cheerful retreat means leaving without resentment, without looking back, and without the need to win the breakup or the exit interview. It is the ability to say, this cycle has ended, and to walk away with a smile. Why does this bring good fortune? Because resentment is a tether. If you leave a job but spend the next 3 years talking about how much you hated your boss, you haven't actually retreated. You are still there, mentally, fueling the very fire you tried to escape. Think of Steve Jobs when he was ousted from Apple in 1985. He didn't spend decades suing the board or trying to sabotage the company. He performed a cheerful retreat. He went and started next. He bought Pixar. He built entirely new worlds. He persevered in his own growth, and because he didn't stay stuck in the anger of his retreat, the good fortune eventually brought him back to Apple to save it on his own terms. He won by leaving. The actionable principle: the quality of your next beginning is determined by the grace of your current ending. If you cannot leave cheerfully, you are not retreating, you are just relocating your baggage. Finally, we reach the highest level of this ancient art. The I Ching calls it the noble retreat. The text says, noble retreat. Good fortune for the superior man. To the inferior man, it is a matter of doubt. This is the most provocative claim in the entire book. It suggests that when a truly wise person decides to step back, the rest of the world will think they are making a mistake. Why are you quitting now? Why are you closing that profitable store? Why are you leaving the industry when you're at the top? To the inferior man, those who only understand growth and accumulation, the noble retreat looks like madness. Look at athletes like Barry Sanders or Andrew Luck, men who were at the absolute pinnacle of their professions, who were healthy, who were making millions, and who simply walked away. The fans were shocked. The commentators called them quitters, but they were practicing the noble retreat. They knew their inner hexagram had changed. They chose to preserve their health and their dignity rather than waiting for the tail of their careers where they would be forced out by injury or fading skill. Statistically, 80% of businesses fail within 5 years. Most of them fail because they refuse to perform a noble retreat from a flawed idea until they were forced into a catastrophic bankruptcy. The actionable principle: the best time to leave is when everyone else thinks you should stay. We have spent 15 minutes in the clouds of philosophy and history. Now, let's bring this down to the ground. If you are feeling the weight of a cycle that needs to end, if you are exhausted, if you are running in place, if you are fighting a battle that no longer feels like yours, here are 3 things you can do this week. These are not suggestions. These are the protocols of the sage. First, the distance protocol. This week, identify the one situation that is draining your energy the most. It might be a project, a person, or a digital habit. You are going to practice a mini retreat. For 48 hours, you will create total silence in that area. No emails, no checking the status, no just seeing if they replied. The goal isn't to solve the problem. It's to see who you are without the problem. If you cannot go 48 hours without checking, you are not in control. The tail is wagging the dog. Apply this to that toxic group chat or that failing trade. Step back to see the whole field. Second, the sunk cost audit. Sit down with a piece of paper. List your 3 biggest commitments of time and money. Now, ask yourself this question. If I were starting from scratch today with the knowledge I have now, would I buy into this again? If the answer is no, you are currently in a blocked retreat. You are staying because of what you've already spent, not because of what you will gain. The I Ching tells us that the superior man cuts the line. This week, pick one small commitment that failed the starting from scratch test and cancel it. End it. Withdraw. Feel the immediate surge of energy that comes from no longer defending a losing position. Third, the dignity exit. Identify one conflict you are currently involved in: an argument with a partner, a dispute with a neighbor, or rivalry at work. This week, you are going to lose on purpose. You are going to perform a cheerful retreat. Say the words, you might be right about that. Let's leave it there. Watch what happens to your internal state. When you refuse to participate in the conflict has no power over you. You are retreating not because you are weak, but because you are too noble to waste your life force on a battle that has no good fortune at the end of it. We began this journey with a counterintuitive claim that the most powerful military strategy is to never fight to win, but to know when to run away. Sun Tzu, who likely studied the I Ching deeply, said that the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. But to achieve that victory, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to let the inferior man call you a quitter. You must be willing to value your internal peace more than your external win streak. The I Ching is not a book of answers. It is a mirror. If you have watched this far, it is likely because you are currently standing at the edge of a retreat. You feel the pull of the new cycle, but the old one is still gripping your ankles. Remember hexagram 33. Remember that the mountain stays still while the wind passes over it. If you found value in this decoding of the sage's path, there is a link below to the Art of War playbook, which applies these principles to the modern landscape of strategy and career. In our next episode, we will explore the opposite of the retreat, the moment of great power, and how to handle it without destroying yourself. If you choose not to subscribe, you will miss the moment the wind turns in your favor. Retreat with dignity. Move with purpose. I will see you on the path.